Hello. So, I am back after my cup of tea, and so did you. We continue the dances of Southeast Asia. In that, one of the most important dance is the Khon. The Khon is a mask play, and it is the classic Thai dance, and it is known from very old times, time immemorial, as the Khon, which Khon, Khon, implies the wearing of mask by performers, something like our chow maybe. These masks indicate the personality of its wearer and have a wide variety of design. By reason of the fact that performers wear masks and therefore are unable to utter any kind of sound, there must be a reciter whose role resembles somewhat that of the chorus in the old English dramatic sense. This, however, does not apply to the clowns who wear no masks and carry on their dialogues in the ordinary way. Later on, it became the preferred habit for those taking human roles as well as roles of celestial beings not to wear masks. These performers still keep to the former tradition of non-utterance. All performers of the Khon are therefore, and they have to adapt their steps and poses to the recitation and songs of the chorus. Now, the chorus is known in Thai as the Khon Pak, that is the reciter, and has the same role as the Dalang in the Javanese choreography. What they recite represents a form of poetry which poets of old wrote for the performance of the shadow play. These recitations are of two categories, the Kampak and the Sersa. The Kampak is Chanda poetry of the type specified as the Kavya and pronounced as Kab, such as the poems of Samudra Ghosha and Aniruddha from the days of Ayodhya. From the shadow play, it is developed into the Khon. Its repertoire is taken out of Ramakeen, that is the Ramayana. In addition to the recitations, there is also what is known as the Sasera, Kachara, that is the dialogue, which may also include descriptions of actions of the stage. It is what should be described as the rhythmic prose, or what we call chanda, known by the technical term and name as Rai. This kind of prose is identical with the prose adapted to the more formal official proclamations and law preambles of the present day. The Khonpak or reciter must of course be fully conversant with his subject and know the rhythm of the dancer's movements so that he may be able to regulate his recitation and pauses in consonance with the requirements of the technique of the dance. For it is mostly his utterances that guide the dancer's movements. The Sasera admits of interpolations on the part of the reciter. The Khon therefore has to rely for its perfection upon the coordination of dancer, reciter and the orchestra. The story of Khon is the story of Rama, the Indian hero who is immortalized in the Hindu epic Ramayana of Valmiki. The Thai version of Ramayana is called Ramakeen. The savants have studied and made comparisons of the great epic of Valmiki and its versions in the countries east of India. They have come to the conclusion that our version belongs to the later class and was not derived from that of the seer Valmiki, but from Indonesian versions, no doubt prevailing in the epoch of Sri Vijaya Empire. The later in their turn might have been derived from various sources themselves, originating from the pre-classical Indian versions as far back perhaps as the time of our Lord Buddha. We have, for instance, the Tamil episode of Mahiravana in the localized form of Mayarab. We have also the tradition of Rama commanding two monkey armies, one from Kathin and another from Jambu, whereas the Ramayana of Valmiki records an army of monkeys from Krishkinda, that can be Kalkin, and another army under Jamban consisting of bears. This role seems to correspond with the Jambuvan of the Thai version, although the later is a monkey from Kathlin and not even a monkey commander of the monkey army of Jambu. This agrees with the non-Valmiki version of the Bengal. So, whether ours is derived through Indonesia from South Indian Tamil traditions or from the Bengali, in which case the Pala culture there might have been the key to the problem, it seems clear that it is not derived from the Ramayana of Valmiki. It is also clear that the origin and venue of Ramkin indicate cultural relationships between these oriental civilizations. The Thai Ramkin, which was composed for the classical dance, exists in many versions. The only one, however, which is complete is the version of King Rama I, while the one most suitable for representation on the stage is that of Rama II. In more recent representations, however, the management of such representations often adapted the old version to suit the circumstances or the special abilities of their performers. In the adaptations, for instance, of the Royal Fine Arts Department, the versions of King Rama I and Rama II from the main basis, namely the sung portions. Recitatives and the dialogues have, however, often had to be composed for each of the episodes performed. There are, however, contexts which are not based on the versions of the two kings mentioned. The best known was written by King Rama VI, who used as his authority for the story of classical Ramayana of Valmiki through its English translation. In the Ramakin, the greater part of the story is concerned with the war waged upon Tosakant, the demon king of Lanka, by Rama, the righteous king of Ayodhya, and his brother Lakshmana. The two brothers with Rama's beloved consort Sita, that is Sita, had gone to take up a hermit's life in the depth of the forest when the demon king abducts Sita and brings her to his pleasaunce near the city of Lorchka with the hope of marrying her. The brothers begin the pursuit. Hanumana volunteers service, and through him they win two allies in the person of Sukarlp, that is Sugriva, king of Khitkin, and Thau, Mohajumpu, the great king of Jambu. Then they march with their allied armies to the seaboard to the south of the Indian continent, opposite the island of Lanka. They then acquire as another ally Paipek Vibhishana, a brother of Tosakant, who had been banished by the demon king and is a first rate astrologer. With these allies, the brothers lay siege to the city of Lotka after they had crossed the ocean. After a long series of battles with the demons of Lanka and their allies, the armies of Rama are invariably successful. Tosakant, having exhausted the sources of all help from relatives and allies, resolves upon going out himself to give battle to the enemy. He is finally killed in the battle. Rama then consecrates his ally Pipeka as the king of Lanka and returns with Sita to Ayodhya, where he resumes his reign. The epic goes on to record many more battles, but except for the single episode of the adventure of Rama's son, these subsequent campaigns very rarely find their way to the stage. The training of the Khon is very special, and performers of the Khon are normally male, although at times the roles of human males and females are taken by women. They are trained from the early childhood. Since the role in the story of the Ramakeen are of 4 categories, the training is divided into 4 sections, namely those of the male human, the female human, the demonic and the simian parts. For the human roles, the training is identical with those of the dance drama, which has been discussed earlier. It is here we propose to deal only with the demon and monkey roles. The preliminary training for those parts is identical and consists of the tapping the knees in order to train the pupil to realize a sense of rhythm and musicality. Knocking the waist accustom the upper part of the body to flexibility. Steps at the pole to accustom the legs to correct angular poses and strengthen them for angular movements. Pressing into angles to bend and retain the body, arms, legs and breast into fixed angles so that there could be no undignified stooping at any moment during the dance. The preliminary course of training in Thai theatrical art is for the different parts. For the simian parts, there are other acrobatic movements to be trained for. An additional training for the simian role is for squaring the thighs in order to strengthen them and to enable the legs to stretch out to their full length. Then turning somersault, a special somersault for the simian role in which the pupil first places his hands and feet on the ground, keeping his face upwards, and then raises his legs up to the position. In such a pose, he is trained to walk with his hands and then brings the legs down to complete the circle, thus regaining the previous position. All this, a few other movements being done to render the body supple and quick of movement. After this, the pupil is taught either singly or in batches of 2 or 3 in the simian movements. The instructor is not only setting example, but always ready to help in balancing or settling the limbs in correct positions. After these preliminary exercises, the pupil is trained very often individually or in groups of 2 or 3 in movements of the classic dance in general. Now, let us look at the music of Khon as the third factor that contributes to the success of Khon is the orchestra. Formally, the essential of a Khon orchestra consisted only merely on 5 pieces known as the 5. With the later development of orchestral organization, the number has grown in accordance with the nature and setting of the piece to be performed. Performers of the orchestra must be proficient not only with all the stock melodies and marches, but also with the movements of the classic dance. The onus of the orchestra devolves upon the player of the Renseed, who leads on most occasions, and the player of the Spawn, who acts the pace of the movements. In the later years, there has been interspersed into the Khon considerable singing in the fashion of the court lap on, and extra singers have been augmented into the composition of the chorus. The Khon as it is performed now therefore consists of 4 categories of participants, namely the dancers, the reciters who also does the sesera, the singers and the orchestra. The dress of Khon is most distinct. Naturally, the mask, which in the cases of demonic and simian part conform to the stipulated shapes and colors. Other sartorial items are also comfortable to certain characteristics. The dress of demon is designed to create a sense of ferocity and strength, while that of a human hero majestic and graceful. Female parts beauty and gentility, and simian role restlessness characteristics of its original. Aside from sartorial properties, there are of course other accessories such as movable dais, war chariots, bows, arrows, batons, trident, royal canopies and such. The Ramakien is a long story and has been written by various authors in several versions. For the purpose of presentation, therefore, adaptations into episodes have been necessary. Such an episode is called chud, whereas in other forms of dramatic presentation, such an episode would be known as ton, new. The later term signifies a section, while the former means a set. The reason why the chud or set should be adopted only for the Khon and not for other forms of entertainment seems to lie in the following fact. The Khon was originally inspired by or even originated from the Nang, that is the shadow play. When a shadow play was to be presented, it used to be necessary to select from screening the figures which were very numerous and arrange them in sets for due representations in the order in which they were to be screened. Thus, the word set came to be used for episodes of the Khon, such as the ones which have been presented by the Royal Department of the Fine Arts from time to time at the theatre since the conclusion of the South Asian War, and namely the sets designated as the conquest of the demon crow, the lady afloat, the magic of Mulai Rub, the snake noose, the weapon of Brahma, Hanuman the volunteer, the fire ordeal of Sida, etc. There have been many forms of representation of various kinds in the past. Now there are only 5, namely they are Khon player, the open air mask play, in which it is understood that military reviews and battles are the order of the day. The accompanying music would be appropriate marches, whilst the text would consist of recitative, that is khampak, and dialogues without singing. Then Khon Rock Nak, called Khon Nan Rao, a variety in which the play is performed on the stage with a pole, the latter serving as the sitting. The pole is placed towards the back of the stage, flanked by a simple curtain on which is painted a scene of mountain or forest. Like the above variety, there is no singing, only recitation and dialogues taking place. There are, as a rule, two peep-heart bands, one at either end of the stage. A development of this variety called Khon is often adopted, in which a preliminary performance takes place on the first day and the main representation on the second. The troupe staying the night in between on or near the stage. The preliminary performance would consist of inaugurative music, a sort of overture, but repeated in every set and the episode of a performance. Then the performers would do the dance, which is in turn followed by a short episode of Pera, the demon who, being in the habit of catching for food any living being strayed into his park, tries to devour Rama and his brother while wandering in search of Sita. Pirab is eventually killed. This demon is found in the Sanskrit Ramayana under the name of Virada. Then is Khon or the mask play before the screen, and it is a variety in which the representation takes place like the shadow play in front of a screen of white cloth which acts as the back of the stage. Khon meaning of the court mask play, is a variety which has the greatest affinity to the dance drama of the court, consisting of singing as well as recitative and dialogues. The staging is naturally more elaborate. In these four varieties of the mask play, the story presented is not divided into acts or scenes, nor is there any kind of mise-en-scène. There is yet one more variety, and that is Khon, the mask play on the modern stage, such as the performances of the Royal Fine Arts Department, which have been regularly staged since 1946. There are certain formalities that the choreographer has to observe. The Thai choreographic technique is an intricate and very exacting one, indicating how strict was the observance of formalities within the profession. No one, for instance, may cross the stage during the performance except those dressed for their parts, and it is due to this reason that stage hands who carry accessories on the stage are required to adopt some kind of theatrical dress while performing their duties, if the duties necessitate their appearance on the stage. The reason for this is obvious when one considers the fact that the stage is open on three sides instead of one, and intrusion is much easier here than on the western stage. Neglect of this formality is regarded as discourtesy to the traditional master of the dance and music. No performance may end in a tragedy. If Rama or his brother Lakshmana is wounded or worsted in the battle, the performance must continue until they are cured or restored to life. Similarly, the final defeat and death of Tosakant is considered by professionals as a taboo and is never played. Exception to this ruling has been known at times, but then it is only permissible through the express command of the sovereign. The Khon or mask play has been regarded among the Thai from the olden days as an art which is composed of various forms of fine arts and is a key to all other forms of dramatic or choreographic manifestations of the art because of its classic traditions. The main mask is that of Bharata Muni, who is considered and believed to be the originator of the performing arts. Thank you. Namaste.